thank you for joining us. I am really excited to be here to talk about the Innovation Series. As you've heard over the last 2 days, or hopefully have taken away over the last 2 days, the way that we think about the cloud, the way that we understand cloud actually impacting businesses is not simply from an IT standpoint. It's not simply a way to get IT better, faster, cheaper. It may have started that way, and in many cases, a lot of you in the audience and a lot of others really started moving into the cloud because it was a way to get on-demand access to computing power. But what we are really seeing now is that the cloud is becoming a platform, as Thomas said earlier, for digital transformation. And if you think about it, every customer, every company is becoming a data company, is becoming a software company, is becoming an AI company, is becoming a digital company. And that is a really profound change for many, many of you all here today. And we very much view our role within Google Cloud as helping to facilitate that transformation, to help providing the tools to enable that transformation, to help provide the capabilities, the training, the raw materials, and partnering with each of you to help make that change happen, help bring whatever innovations you want to life, but very much in partnership. And it really does require a fundamental rethink of what is the purpose of the company. What are you trying to achieve? What are the business problems that you are looking to solve? And how can cloud help with that? And so what I'm, in my role here at Google as President of Google Cloud, looking after our partner and industry platforms, I get to see this every day. And Thomas and Urs and others have talked about how we're trying to build capabilities in a range of industries, whether that's in manufacturing and energy, whether that's in retail, consumer products, whether it's in healthcare, financial services, a whole range of others, public sector, how we are trying to partner with each of you to bring about this change, to bring about the transformation, and to help you discover new insights into your business. How do you serve your customers better? How do you make your supply chains more efficient? So I couldn't be more excited than to be here introducing this session. What you're going to hear today is a set of best practices, a set of case studies, a set of insights that a number of different companies, your peers, have been able to generate, changes and transformations they've been able to create using the capabilities available in the cloud, the IT capabilities, the analytical capabilities, AI, and a whole range of other cases. And so it's a wonderful list of companies that are going to come on up and share their stories with you. I hope you enjoy it and learn something. And without any further ado, I'd like to bring up Chris from Target. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Krishan Srinivasan. I head the Cloud and Compute organization at Target. For those who shop at Target and for those who love shopping at Target, I'm sure you know that we are all about inspiration and joy. And for those who don't know about Target, we are one of the biggest retailers in the US across 50 states. And I have a simple proposition that I want to start with. Any organization that wants to serve its customers or is thinking about customer satisfaction has to think about inspiration and joy. Now, how many of us from an IT standpoint think inspiration and joy? At Target, we do. Technology has been a key factor behind Target's growth over the last few years. And we are just getting started. See, it's even more critical because if your goal is to be America's easiest place to shop, technology becomes a foundational stone for us. Now, having said that, we know that our guests have high expectations. They want us to do well. They believe in us. They're rooting for us. They want us to innovate. And simply, they just want us to be Target. So with all these high expectations, how do we look up and out from a technology standpoint? How do we make sure that we build the right platforms and capabilities from an infrastructure standpoint so that we are ready for our future guests when they come up with those new experiences or when they're looking for those new experiences. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Last year, our CIO, Mike McNamara, was at this very event, and he shared the business strategy and the technology transformation at Target. As Mike stated, our strategy is indeed working. And cloud is an enabler, and thank you to Google for being part of the journey as well. In fact, this is our 5th straight year where we are growing 25% year over year. And I'm happy to say that last year was the first year where we ran 100% of our cloud commerce workload on Google Cloud Platform. So Google, thank you for a flawless holiday season in 2018. Together, we came together, and we provided our guests some phenomenal experiences. Now, what you see on the screen is these are industry-leading fulfillment services for our guests, and we're just adding on more and more to it. A couple of examples. Let's say you're at work, and you want to make that order. You're looking for something, but you don't have the patience to wait for 2 days. You have the capability now to make that order online from your work and pick it up on your way back home. What about this? A busy mom, it's raining. She has 2 little ones in her back seat, and one of them is starting to throw some tantrums. The other one starts to begin to melt down, and I know some of us have been there. She does not have to get out of her car. And what we have done is we have given that mom the capability to punch in that order, and when she drives her car to the parking lot, our team members get notified through a geolocation service. And within 2 minutes, our store team members will come and place the order in the car trunk. And these are the experiences that we are talking about in the future. Now, how did we get here? I would say there are 3 foundational principles at Target we believe in. First, technology has to be experience-focused. Now, what do I mean by that? At Target, experiences takes first before technology does. All of us have been in incident, outages, and operational calls. Something happens, we get on a call, and this is where typical IT organizations do. There's a server failure, there's a database failure, or some software developer over there did a full table scan, brought down an application. At Target, we look at it a little bit different. When we have an outage or an incident at Target, yes, all of us do get on the call, but the first question we ask is, what is the impact to the guest? What is the impact to the team member? We understand that very clearly, and then we talk about what is the technical or technology issues. Second, architecture must be simple, elegant, and adaptive. And what I mean by that is, when we write applications at Target, we want to make sure that we don't have a vendor lock-in. And there is this foundational principle that platforms are the path to the future and not just tools. And the third thing I would say is, technology has to embrace cloud and open source, which is why we went with Google. Now, we all know that cloud gives us a speed and agility and elasticity and all that good stuff. But what about open source? At Target, when we have a solution and we're looking for a solution for a problem, the first thing we do is internally look inside and see whether we can repurpose a solution that we already have. If for some reason that's not available, we then go to the open source community. And we look at it, and if for some reason that's not available, we then go ahead and write it on our own, even before we go to the vendors. And the best part is, once we write it, we contribute back to the open source community. So I talked about these high expectations earlier that guests have on us. They want us to do well. They want us to be Target. They want us to innovate. This is where the next chapter of innovation comes in that I talked about earlier, which is all about focusing on our guests and our team members in the future. Be it a quart of milk or that beautiful rug you're looking at, or that perfect gift that you want for somebody. Target is a positive force behind millions of people in the US every single day. Now, we have about 30 million of our guests shop at our stores every month, about 100 million visits in our digital fronts. So to do this, we operate in at about 1,850 stores. We have 39 distribution centers. We have our own 2 data centers, and yes, we also have Google Cloud as well. And here's the challenge that comes in. What if all these assets came together seamlessly? What if I could take a workload and just deploy it across the board? And what if I don't look at these 1,850 stores as stores, but I look at them as yet another extension of my cloud? So tomorrow, I'm not going to have just GCP. I may have 1,850 cloud environments. Just think about that power and the capability and the scalability that we can get. And what if there is a scenario where I have 5 stores in New York, 3 stores in San Francisco. I want to do 2 pilots the same day. I get the results back, and I pick one of them because one has a better experience for a guest. And within a few hours, what if I can just deploy to 1,850 stores across the hundreds of thousands of devices that are running on those stores? We have close to 130,000 Android mobile devices that are running in those stores. And what if I can do that seamlessly? And here's the best part. What if I could do everything that I said and still make the underlying infrastructure completely invisible to our engineers? So they are focused on what they're good at, which is to write great software that can delight our guests and make our team members happy. They don't have to worry about the underlying technology. They don't have to worry about patches, the version upgrades. We take care of all of that. And that's what we have been working on at Target. Our engineers have been hard at work for the last 18 months building this platform at Target to solve this exact challenge for the future. Within Target, we call it as TAP, or TAP, which stands for Target Application Platform. The mission of this platform is very simple. It's to make Target the best place to write and deliver software with zero-touch infrastructure. So in closing, I want to go back to my initial proposition that I made, that any organization that wants to provide great customer service must focus on inspiration and joy. Our guests get inspiration and joy from our products and services, which they love, and they're rooting for us. Our store team members get inspiration and joy by delivering those services to our guests. Our technology team members get inspiration and joy by building and innovating for the next set of experiences. And that's the thing about inspiration and joy. When it's going great, you get to renew it every single day. And that's what we do at Target, and we are just getting started. Thank you, and have a wonderful conference.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marcus East. I have the best job in the world in that I'm the Chief Technology Officer for National Geographic. And what you just saw on screen there was just a slice of the National Geographic image collection. Now, we don't think of those assets just as digital files. Every single one of those pictures that you saw tells a story. They're the stories of adventurers who've been around the world to explore unknown places, photographers who are trying to capture their knowledge of the world, or researchers who are trying to help us better understand the planet around us. And we take our responsibility at National Geographic very seriously as the custodians of those images, because those images help to tell stories, and those stories help to improve people's knowledge of the planet Earth, of its people, its animals, and its places. And by doing so, we hope that we can help people to care more about the planet, because if they care more about the planet, they're more likely to protect the planet. And so our team is incredibly excited that not only do we do things that are fantastic from a technology perspective, but we have an opportunity to do things that are actually meaningful to society. So those beautiful images, many of which that you recognized, obviously have to be supported by a great technology platform. And at National Geographic, we had what we called a system called SPY. And SPY was effectively the home for these wonderful images. It had roughly 17 terabytes of data, housing 2 million iconic images that have really helped over the last 130 years to shape the narrative coming out of National Geographic. It probably won't surprise you to hear, though, that over the last 20 years, the team that's responsible for running our image collection had built, they would describe it as lovingly hand-built, an application in Java that was, over a period of 20 years, iterated upon. We discovered there was not much documentation, unfortunately. I'm sure that's a situation that none of you have ever experienced before. It was hosted on-premise, and it was managed by an operations team without technical oversight. And from my perspective, when I first joined National Geographic 2 years ago, it was obvious to me that it had what we describe as a suboptimal information security posture. Now, that's a situation that was clearly not acceptable to us. And interestingly, that system that was housing the crown jewels of National Geographic found itself under intense scrutiny. And our VP of Information Security came to me and she said, Marcus, I think we have a bit of a problem. This system is not really fit for purpose. In terms of the legacy that we're protecting, we need to do something about this. And we unfortunately took the decision to take that system offline. And we worked with the business team to come up with a solution. We helped them to remediate the issues. And after many, many months of this, we realized that this was actually not going to work. And we had to take some drastic action. Our CEO came to my office and said, Marcus, we need to do something here. I'd like your team to take responsibility for this. And this was in November of 2018. Your team has to take responsibility for this, has to fix this application and get it back online. And as he was leaving my office, and he said, and by the way, it must be up by January 2019. So that's obviously not something that you ever want to hear. We had a situation where the crown jewels of our organization were in a system that needed help. We had a very limited time in which to do something. And the thing that was driving the need to do something was what we call our Storytellers Summit, where all of the famous photographers that tell these National Geographic stories around the world were coming to Washington, D.C., to National Geographic headquarters in order to celebrate photography. And obviously that was not going to be a great story if we didn't have the archive up and running. The good news is we like a challenge in the product and technology function at National Geographic. In fact, two of my colleagues here, Melissa Wiley, our VP of Digital Products, and Mike Debnam, our VP of Engineering, huddled with me in my office and we said, all right, what are we going to do here in order to resolve this problem? We didn't have much time. We were familiar with the cloud. We had spent a lot of time working on a migration to the cloud, but we realized that this needed to be something special, something more. We decided to reach out to our friends at Google Cloud. And the reason that we did that was not just because we felt that they had incredible technology and a great solution to the problems that we were facing, but we felt there was an alignment of values. In our conversations with them, we understood that they cared as much about the environment as we do. Things like sustainability were things that they talked about when proposing to us using Google Cloud as a possible platform. And we then set about, just before Thanksgiving, the process of putting this incredibly valuable archive back online. Google worked very closely with us, both from a technology perspective, but also from a professional services perspective. We introduced a third party called Globant, and in fact, that was Google's suggestion. We already had an existing relationship with Globant, so we were very happy to work with them. And you can imagine what the next 8 weeks was like, with a team of people working around the clock to take this legacy application, to move it into Google Cloud, to protect it. In this case, we used technologies from both Okta and Akamai to protect access to that application. And we were able to get it up and running in time for the Storyteller Summit. Now, that's not something that we would necessarily want to do again. I would not encourage anyone in the room who's a technologist to sign up for an 8-week mission-critical deployment to the cloud, but we did it. And I would say that it was incredibly rewarding to work with both Google Cloud and Glebant to get that done. You can't have a CTO on the stage without an architectural diagram, of course. I don't have time to go into this, but what I would say is that one of the beauties for us in working with Google Cloud was the flexibility that they brought. I think when Tarek made his opening comments, he really brought that home with this focus on solving business problems. The fact that we had other systems that were connected to SPI and other systems that were dependent on it wasn't an inhibitor to working with Google Cloud to get this application up and running. So what about the future? We've obviously been able to take this application and get it into Google Cloud, make it available to our photographers and our internal stakeholders again. And that's been wonderful. In fact, I received hugs and kisses from our photographers as a result of us having done that. But there is an interesting future. One of the reasons that we chose to work with Google Cloud was our excitement about tools such as AutoML and the Cloud Vision API that will allow us to do things such as enriching the metadata that goes with these wonderful images that we have in our image collection. And we believe that we can utilize the power of GCP and some of the native capabilities in Google Cloud to build even more compelling stories and even more compelling experiences in the future. But the most important thing is that the legacy of our photographers is now safe. And these are not just the legacies of these individual photographers. In some respects, they are part of the legacy of humanity. These are stories that need to be told, that people need to understand. And I'm delighted to say that working with Google Cloud, we were able to secure the image collection not just for ourselves, but for many, many generations to come. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Bandura, and I'm a research geophysicist at Chevron. Some of you may remember that I was on stage at Google Next last July. Back then, I talked about how to make sense out of way too much data. We were using Google Cloud's AutoML Vision API to analyze the content of thousands of geoscience documents and to make them searchable. My goal then was to describe how we could quickly access and utilize the work documented by thousands of Chevron employees in the form of field reports, seismic recordings, core samples, lab analyses, environmental studies, and much more. With Google Cloud, we got it in one place, digitized it, and through the power of machine learning, gave this data new life. Today, I want to tell you how far we've come with that project and how we've added tools to do something far more valuable, creating a new way of consuming information by a rich and diverse team of people and acting faster to achieve our business goals. The energy business literally powers the modern world. For someone like me, part of the excitement is understanding how we use geology and geophysics to understand the subsurface of the Earth. In my work, we use seismic waves to probe the subsurface geology. Those measurements are then used to create detailed pictures of what the Earth looked like deep into the past, and also to help us determine where oil and gas are located. Here we've shown an example of a modern river system containing channel features that have similar dimensions and patterns to features that we tried to find in the subsurface for exploration. And one of these examples is this image of a submarine canyon system that we've found within seismic data. But the excitement doesn't stop there. The next step is to connect our interpretations of these images to the value chain and to ultimately impact how we produce oil and gas. For an integrated energy company like Chevron, that means working with multiple teams globally that include research scientists, engineers, and analysts. Some of us are working in offices interpreting data, and others are out in the field conducting operations. Communicating with our peers across geographic and language boundaries and across subject matter domains is nothing new to Chevron. In fact, we've done this very well for over a century. Over time, however, information can become siloed. What if we could create some common digital spaces where all teams could look at all of the available information to support the work that they are doing? What if all of Chevron's experts could have the best data available at all times, regardless of where they are located or what their technical specialty is? How would we organize something like that? And the answer is to take things back to basics. And for us, that is the Earth, and to build it up in a whole new way. On Google Cloud, we've created a system that digitizes text, tables, and images, all sorts of notations and data readings. We've made everything searchable through metadata that was automatically generated. With AutoML, we utilize custom geologic labels to tag images and use knowledge graphs to summarize field reports. With natural language processing and translation, we created an enormous index of our data and documents that is now searchable in any language. This means that data from years ago can be combined with more recent findings or matched against technology improvements that we've made in field development planning, in safety, or even in well completions, giving new life to work that took place many years ago. Where physical and geographical data are concerned, Google Earth is the key technology for visualization. We can take the surface view of the Earth and then expand it to create a view of its below-surface features, as well as we know them from decades of our work in exploration and production. Populating it with information like seismic data and well logs that describe transitions between geologic layers. We can add publicly available information about surrounding geologies and industry activities, developing still richer ways of seeing our data with new understanding. And this is really, literally, decades of human work seen in the context of millions of years of geology. And this is really just the beginning for us. We have new ways of seeing and using legacy and modern data and linking it with real-time business processes happening within Chevron around the globe each day, from earth science to facilities engineering, to environment and safety and beyond. Through our collaboration with Google, we have developed a framework that enables us to do more together, connecting our technical experts to our data and to each other. And that's really made possible by what our hosts today are calling One Google. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be in this session with hearing all the wonderful stories from my other speakers. Indeed, how Google Cloud is being utilized. And I thought it is important for us at Philips as a healthcare sector to also implement some of those things real life. So indeed, this is indeed a good learning session for me also. I thought that would be interesting to share some insights. I'm the group CIO of Philips. We have 3-4 businesses that we are handling in personal health, connected care, and really trying to bring together diagnostics, imaging, and other applications to the patient's medical industry altogether. But more important is, how do we work effectively with our partners so that we can all make healthy living a success? Doesn't that appeal to each one of you? Healthy living, right? It's about you and I and how we can do different things during this journey. So what is interesting to me is really getting on the plate, how are we leveraging the cloud? So we have something called HealthSuite digital platform that was implemented a couple of years back as we started thinking through the journey overall, that there is a full ecosystem in the healthcare sector of insurers, of payers, of hospitals, diagnostic centers, and of course, self-care. When a patient is at times in the senior citizen stage or is in the ICU, where they do not wish to be in the hospital. They just want to be at home, in the comfort zone of the home. How can we bring the services together? And all of these things prompted us to think about what is called always on. So you need to have access to good healthcare services and also have the ability to give the feedback loop as such. And that's where the entire cloud journey began for us, where we said the personalized connected services is something that will allow us for that feedback loop to happen. And indeed, when working through the developments that the cloud providers like Google are giving to us, I think this is wonderful. So if I look at it, not only is as an industry domain in healthcare that we are thinking through these kinds of problems and use cases, but also the fact that around us, technology is changing significantly. And if you see the horizons, right from horizon 1 to maybe the nth horizon, and the chatbots, the cloud-based ecosystem can provide, for example, the deep learning that is needed in order to give an insight which will allow for the technology or the smart technology to be really leveraged in a healthcare environment is immense. So if I just take one of these examples of smart technology where AI bot services is going to be extremely useful, is in the clinical environment where there is a help that is needed. And if we are able to take up the symptoms from a patient and holistically create a database that allows that particular data to be shared with various service providers, physicians, and hospitals, and make the electronic medical record, which is called the EMR sector, to be a reality, that would be a big success for all of us. It's really having real-time information insights that is needed. We even think about digital coaches, concepts of digital coaches, where we have a product which is called Sonicare toothbrush. I don't know how many of you use that, but I hope, yeah, that's one good show of hands from Tariq. There you go. Can I have a show of hands for the Sonicare toothbrush? Excellent, excellent. Yes, that's what we needed, right? So we get that feedback loop going from the toothbrush, whether you're doing a good job of covering all those ends in your mouth or not, and making sure that those insights can be fed back through the cloud environment, no matter which part of the world you're living in. That's real life, day-to-day type of changes that we can bring to you through these digital coaches. I'll take another example, and I love it because e-commerce has been growing like anything. And when you think about e-commerce, I always think about, okay, say you're dealing with an asthma patient, and an asthma patient, say, needs effectively to be treated, you need air humidifier. So if the patient data for the asthma patient can be collated, as a human being, there are different components that have to be collated from a data insight standpoint, and a recommendation engine to be connected through the e-commerce online platform, where recommendation would be to buy an air humidifier or to leverage something like an air humidifier, then that connects the whole solution dot. And that's the journey we are towards, and I bet cloud providers like Google would really be very, very helpful to all of us. And I'm extremely thankful to, of course, Anthos, the platform that has been launched, because then we don't have to think about constraints from what kind of a hybrid cloud environment we are carrying. I think IoT is a much used word. What I'd like to introduce to you is IoMT, which is Internet of Medical Things. And this whole ecosystem of smart devices with the medical things, because a medical industry, if I consider this side as the medical side and this side as the IoT side, both have to merge and provide that connected solution. And so that's where, say, the connectivity is about not just hardware and software design, but actually bringing the innovation services. And for healthcare, I would say that this is so much needed. Our whole connected healthcare system, like in an ICU, for example, how you see the 7 monitors in an ICU, all the inputs and insights from those 7 monitors, the data has to be connected through real-time software and provided to the physicians, right? And so finally, I'd like to say that the Future Health Index findings are of great value. We clearly see that for us to be very high in the Future Health Index of what Philips does, we do see that cloud is there and is very much needed with all the enhancements of AI and machine learning as such in order to really give connected care, this whole connected care technology, a successful value-add initiative for each one of us to leverage. So I look forward to this journey with all our cloud providers, and thank you, Tariq, for inviting us to share some of our needs in the healthcare industry, and I look forward to working with many of us together. Thank you.
That's quite a picture up there. Marcus, if you need this to be part of the repository of National Geographic critical pictures, I'll go ahead and email that to you. So I'm glad to be here today talking a little bit about where I work. So in full transparency, the conversation is powered by Robitussin and cough drops, so I can't be held accountable for anything I say. I brought my notes up to help me out a little bit with that, so please work with me and bear with me. So I am the CIO. My name is David Shiva, and I am the CIO of the largest property management organization in the world. Think of like Jones Lang LaSalle. We're bigger than that. I am also the CIO of the largest fleet in the world. So think of UPS's great big fleet, or Coca-Cola, or Avis, or places like that. Our fleet is bigger than all of that. We are the purveyor of the largest collections of arts and antiquities in the world. We're one of the biggest design and construction companies in North America. So think Whiting Turner or Clark Construction. We do those bodies of work. We do all of this effectively with technology, and I'm going to talk a little bit about partnership and the effective use of technology at the end of this discussion. But we do this on behalf of you, many of you in this space. If you're a U.S. citizen or a visitor to the United States, you're part of who we do this for. So who are we? We're the United States General Services Administration. And we do all of this on behalf of the citizens and visitors of the United States, as well as the federal agencies that support operations in the federal space. So that's a pretty picture of our place. That's one of the many buildings that we manage and control, along with the Pentagon and the White House and others like that. So all of this disparate business mission, we're effectively the back office of the United States. We look after land and buildings and physical needs. Our workers are property managers, they're purchasing agents, they're policy writers. We write policy for the entire federal government. They're technologists. We provide technology for the federal government. We do this on behalf of our federal partners so that our federal partners can focus on their primary mission areas, which are protecting our borders and accelerating the mission to Mars or curing cancer. We do this kind of mundane work so that they can focus on their primary mission areas. Because we've been doing that for a long time, we've become a proving ground, a test ground for new and enabling technologies. So that what we can try before we buy and try before we use in GSA, we can then scale across the rest of government. So talking about that digital transformation role, because we've used technology as an enabler for a fair amount of time, We've been able to take what we've learned internally and scale that through our Federal Acquisition Service. We're the purchasing agents of the federal government, or through Internet of Things with our building automation technologies, and we'll scale that through government, taking our IoT learnings and move it on from there. Let's go to the next one. So how do we do this? In this role, we do a few things. One, we try new technologies. We attract world-class talent into our organization. And we do this for a couple of reasons. We're steward of taxpayer dollars. We're spending your money. A shareholder, when they make an investment in a company, they're going into that knowing that they can potentially lose that money. You citizens, you're not making that investment. We're obligated to do well for you. That's a significant influence on how we do our technology and why we do our technology. Because of that, because we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, we share everything. We share our code, we share our playbooks, we share our configurations, we share our talent, we share our infrastructure, because we're doing this with your dollars. In addition to being able to share everything, the ideation that we do, the builds of our minimally viable products, how we deliver, how we determine what works and what doesn't work. We get some really good outcomes by doing that, by rapidly iterating to things that work and rapidly pivoting away from things that don't. That allows us to be sort of a training center for effective use of technology, not only in the federal government, but elsewhere. Some examples are people from my team, GSA IT, are now the Chief Technology Officer for Department of Homeland Security, or run the federal practice at Salesforce, or run the federal practice at Box, because they learn what they can do, what the art of the possible is in the federal government here, and then export that out elsewhere. Some of the results of this mindset, this innovation mindset, are up on the screen. We've been able to rationalize our applications down to about 20%. The way we deliver, we've been able to save 17.8% of our costs, while also increasing employee satisfaction with what we do and how we do it. That's over $100 million recurring annually that we've been able to save while driving higher, more effective adoption of technologies. And my customer satisfaction rate is 91%. Let that sink in for a minute, 91% in the IT space. Very proud of that. So to the comms team, this is where I'm going to kind of go off script a little bit, so you're free to go get a cup of coffee or something like that. So Tarek at the beginning talked about partnership, and that's where I want to end this conversation, because partnership is key and part and parcel to everything that we do. When we started our transformation play in 2011, there were 0 agencies in the federal government that were using cloud-based email, 0. And so when we said we need to find a lever to drive transformation into the federal government, we had to be very intentional about what we did, because the technology piece, frankly, is the easy part. The hard part's organizational change management, driving adoption of new technologies into a new space. And so we had to be very intentional about what partner we chose. We happened to choose Google. So we partnered with Google to flip from 17 mail systems into a cloud-based Gmail system. Saw some really good outcomes there. And what that did is it allowed me to do 2 things. One, in my organization, to say, look, if you transform, it's not the end of your business world. Your business world will be able to continue to grow and thrive. And that provided a springboard to the next step. And we said, okay, what's the next logical target? We had employees storing data on their laptops and on their phones and in any space where they could possibly find it. And we said, well, let's put a controlled environment there and move that out to the cloud. So we moved to Google Drive and had all 16,000 of our employees move their data out to Google Drive. Really great outcomes. People saw they could still access their stuff. They could get to it from anywhere. And then they saw those great outcomes. And then we moved to Google Docs. And then we moved to Google scripting to allow us to do business process. And then we moved on to Google Cloud, amongst other clouds. And so that lever, that's the thing I want to leave everybody with. When you're choosing your partners, your transformation agents in your organizations, choose very carefully, because they can be the one thin line, the discriminator between success and failure. In that regard, we're super proud that we used Google as that primary transformation agent from the very beginning. That's it. Thank you very much.